Good morning, and thank you for joining me for this midweek reflection. This week marks 100 years since the signing of the Government of Ireland Act, the act of legislation which led to the partition of Ireland between Northern Ireland and what was at first known as the Irish Free State. Partition was something that was not unique to Ireland. It happened in lots of other places within the British Empire, in Cyprus, in Palestine, in India. But I think the partition of Ireland was particularly significant because it seems to me it was not just a partition between North and South, but it was indicative of a much deeper division between communities. Northern Ireland's a place that's close to my heart because I was born there just before the start of what became known as the Troubles. And whilst my family moved to England when I was very small, I've often reflected that had I grown up in the 1970s and 1980s in that very divided community, whether my worldview might have been really rather different to what it was. And when we think of different nations and different national characteristics, what do we think of when we think of the Irish? I think most of all we think of words and the power of words, the whole thing of the gift of the Blarney. We think of George Bernard Shaw, Jonathan Swift, Oscar Wilde, William Butler Yeats, Iris Murdoch, and many, many more. Ireland has always punched far above its weight when it comes to great writers, people who can use words wonderfully and beautifully. And yet, I think words have also been used very powerfully to cause harm and destruction over the decades. Certainly they've been used by political leaders to stoke up fear and hatred. But sadly, and I'm sorry to say this as a Christian priest, I think that words have been used destructively in Ireland by leaders of the faith communities. I think one of the saddest and most poignant symbolic moments in all of the Troubles was perhaps one Christmas morning when a Protestant minister went across the road to the Roman Catholic Church to wish the priest and his congregation a very happy Christmas. Something which you think ought to be the most utterly normal and natural thing on this holy day. And yet, unfortunately, this act of good neighbourliness was treated with howls of derision by the minister's own congregation. Thankfully, and thank God, since 1998 and the passing of the Good Friday Agreement, I think a new generation of people in Northern Ireland really have begun to use their words rather differently. Their words are no longer defined by the fears and the divisions of the past. It seems to me they use their words to speak, hopefully, of a new future which is defined by common values, often global values. I think that in this era of social media and emails, how we all use our words, how we choose our words, whether we use them to build up, to be creative, to encourage, or whether we use our words destructively to cause harm, to justify ourselves. How we do this has huge and lasting effects for good or for ill. This morning I'd like to read a poem to you by the late Seamus Heaney. And this poem is actually not really anything to do with the Troubles. It seems to me it's a poem about time and place and the passing of the generations. But I've chosen it because on this theme of words and how we use them, in the very last lines of the poem, Heaney makes clear his understanding, his awareness of the power of the pen. And he clarifies that he is going to use words well. He is going to use words as his tool to do good in this world. And in that, I think he was an example to us all. Afterwards, we shall hear the hymn, I Heard the Voice of Jesus Say. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests, snug as a gun. Under my window, a clean rasping sound, when the spade sinks into gravelly ground. My father digging. I look down, till his straining rump among the flower beds bends low, comes up 20 years away, stooping in rhythm through potato drills where he was digging. The coarse boot nestled on the lug, the shaft against the inside knee was levered firmly. He rooted out tall tops, buried the bright edge deep, to scatter new potatoes that we picked, loving their cool hardness in our hands. By God, the old man could handle a spade, just like his old man. My grandfather cut more turf in a day than any other man on Toner's bog. Once I carried him milk in a bottle, corked sloppily with paper. He straightened up to drink it, then fell to right away, nicking and slicing neatly, heaving sods. Over his shoulder, going down and down, for the good turf, digging. The cold smell of potato mould, the squelch and slap of soggy peat, the curt cuts of an edge, through living roots awaken in my head. But I've no spade to follow men like them. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests. I'll dig with it.